15 minutes?
No, that's great.
Okay. Official timer says we're within 15 minutes.
All right, perfect.
Well, we have 2 minutes. Do you want to wait 2 minutes?
Well, you can introduce yourselves and talk slow. We'll be within a minute.
You're well versed in all this. You heard the spiel, so go ahead and introduce yourself slowly, and you can talk to me for the first 2 minutes, and then you can include them.
Sounds good. So I'm Ryan O'Hearn with the Pocatello Fire Department and Bannock County Ambulance District, the fire chief.
I'm Autumn Baker. I am the Executive Assistant to Chief O'Hearn.
So we're here to present our operating budget, and do you want me just to kind of go in?
Yep,
as
just
an
do your
overview?
highlights and
Okay.
that kind of thing. Any
So-
asks or projects.
We do have some increases this year in the operating budget, and those mostly include a 3.5% negotiated payroll increase for those employees under the EMS budget. Our operating budget, we've really looked to move money around to areas that maybe we're not executing the budget to compensate for areas that we're maybe over executing. For example, our call volume is up about 20% over the last 5 years. And so with an increased call volume is an increase in things like medical supplies, oxygen, vehicle maintenance, tires, fuel, and things like that. And so our operating budget this year is flat, taking into note some of those efficiencies where we've kind of moved money around in the budget. We did include some support for dispatching services this year. That was $100,000. And then this operating budget also includes, the contract also includes planned retirement and administrative support to handle some of the functions through the city, such as human resources, legal, finance, IT, some of those other services.
Aren't you guys already charging us an admin fee
It is.
from the city?
Yeah, it is.
Is it a higher percentage than what we've been charged?
I think we put it up to the 1.5% this year.
What have we been charged?
It was not at that. It was like 20,000 in the past.
Okay.
You can look at those. As a separate line, we did include, I know we've been considering the conversation about what expansion of the EMS system may look like. So as a separate note there, so that we didn't maybe muddy the waters, so you knew what an expansion would look like, $795,805 would be the cost of adding for wages and benefits for 6 paramedics. But we also realized that the timing, this is just kind of a placeholder to keep us understanding what expansion might look like. This isn't necessarily an ask for this year, because we realize that facilities in South County won't even be ready at the start of the fiscal year, and that this may be something that we look for FY25. We did include $500,000 for deployments, and this is one that would be offset by revenue. So this is just budget authority. In the past, I think we've only done $100,000. So this would be for contracted wildland deployments where we send EMS assets out to assist on large wildfires. Last year, we assisted on the salmon fire. It's called the Moose Fire up in Salmon, Idaho. We had EMS assets up there. The incident pays 100% of the wages and backfill for employees, so the ambulance district is made whole. And then they also pay a fee to use the ambulance or the medical kit or any supplies, and then the district realizes some revenue for that asset to handle depreciation, and it more than covers the depreciation on the equipment.
So you'll be able to get those checks cut to us as opposed to they were just writing them to the city, correct?
We can do that if that would be a better option for us.
If we're going to have the 500 in our budget, we're going to have the revenue.
Yeah.
Because
currently we bill for 1/12, I believe, of the contract. We just bill every month monthly
Well-
installments.
We have it set up that we pay you in October, we pay you October and November on the third week of the month. And then the third week of each month, we pay you for the month ahead.
Okay.
You guys bill us, but we already have.
So
a
on
check
these
cut.
deployments, would that be a separate billing then? And then we would just have checks cut to the county? To the district?
Well, in theory, yeah, we'd have to figure out how we would make that work, because it's already gonna be a part of, if you guys have it built into the contract, then it's already gonna be a part of the contract.
Right.
If it's not gonna be a part of the contract, then you're gonna have to basically run a separate set of books just for the deployments. Otherwise, it might be best to run it through the city side. What?
The city will have already expended the money for the overtime, and the checks come all together in one lump sum.
Yeah.
And we would need to be made whole on that before the end of the fiscal year. And a lot of these unfortunately come right at the end of the fiscal year, these
Yeah,
calls, so it
I'm
makes
not
it.
sure.
But just like she said, if we don't receive the income coming in to cover this, then our books won't match.
And we won't have.
What
the
if we
revenue to
just
cover
did
it.
budget authority on the city side, and the city still received the checks, and then we passed through we retained the money for the wages and backfill, and then we passed through the money for the EMS asset to the district?
Here's what we could say, so say the contract gets approved for 4.5 million, the ambulance budget would actually be another 500,000 on top of that, so it could be the 5,010,000. And then the city would have that 500,000 as revenue on their side, and then the revenue we kick for the contract to equal what your expenditures would be to fund the district. And then as the money comes in, it should offset, and then all journal entry the revenue to come up with the total expenditure amounts. That's kind of what we do right now with the retirement or with any other money. Say you guys overpay a bill by $50 and the city gets the $50 back. I journal entry that $50 activity just because it's ours, so we have to, but it's held on the city side. I can work with finance and see if we can make.
Just so we're not
Something more.
$400,000 short in the budget.
Right.
Right.
Because of
Yeah.
the way we threw it in here.
Yeah. I can work with Gene, and we can come to how we think we might not work, and then he can present it to the council, and I can present to you guys.
And we are re-signing the agreements with these deployments come through the Idaho Department of Lands, and those agreements are up this year in 2023. So we will be signing new agreements. And so if we decide we want to separate them out and have a separate agreement for the ambulance district, this is the perfect year to do that. But I'll touch base with you.
Right now, when you're
And
doing
which-
deployments, the commission's not really signing off on any of those anyways.
Yeah, we had that discussion earlier this year.
Right.
An ambulance can't go out of our jurisdiction without our permission.
I think what we'd like then is kind of permission before the fact, because these deployments, we get called by the Idaho Department of Lands, and we literally have about an hour to say, yeah, we'll take it, and we'll fill it and staff it. And then they're usually on the road within a few hours. So they happen fairly quickly, so we wouldn't be able to come before this body for any kind of approval. So we'd be happy to.
Okay, and that's a different discussion than
Yeah.
a budget discussion. And we're in a budget discussion, so.
Understood.
But we can have that discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to come back before you at a work
When-
session.
We can also figure out the best way to have this 500,000 worked within the budget.
So we'll work with the city and we'll let you know on our recap. We'll have a couple conversations. See how we do it for the recommendation.
Yeah, I'm not against any of it, it's just.
Right.
Sure.
We gotta take care of the books.
Make it work right, yeah.
I have to answer here.
Okay, and then we have the $20,000 that we budget every year in refunds, and that's money for, I think, overpayments that we have to refund due to contractual write-offs or something like that for insurance. And then on the capital request, that one has taken an increase, and I was going to go over the capital for you. So right now we have, I don't think you have the capital sheet in front of you. we have a remount that is on order currently for $168,000. And so we're asking for capital expenditure of $168,000 in FY24 to cover that remount that is on order. I didn't realize that that budget authority didn't roll over the year, and due to supply issues, we ordered it and thought we would take delivery of it sooner, and we just couldn't get a chassis. And so that one will be in 24 and is currently on order. I am asking you for the station alerting system. We are continuing to have failures of the fire and EMS station alerting equipment, and this is the system that 911 dispatch center communicates with our station to get our ambulances and fire trucks on the road to be notified of an emergency. And we're suggesting a cost share with the city of Pocatello on that equipment. Previously, we came before you in 22 asking for a command vehicle. We didn't execute that. It was a short ordering timeline, and there was a discussion on whether to lease or to purchase. And I believe there was a problem with leasing under the contract. And so we'd like to put that back in the budget for FY24. And then we did apply for an Assistance to Firefighters grant for a new ambulance. And if awarded, it would require a match. And so we're asking for $100,000 there. The match that would include the match and some of the equipment that would go on the ambulance, the cardiac monitor, the Lucas device, etc.
And the command vehicle, we had this conversation before, is that strictly ambulance?
It's our training officer. It is not strictly ambulance, but the majority of his job is ambulance, and it is a cost share between the city and the ambulance district for his wages and the administrative positions. And his vehicle has always been provided under the ambulance budget.
Okay. Like I say, that's a conversation we've had before, because this is strictly ambulance, is what we're talking here.
I have a quick question. For the station alerting system, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the 370 that you have here, that you're going to be asking for a split with the city, is 370 the total amount, or is that the halved amount?
That's the halved amount.
Okay.
The total amount right now, and we're still working with Motorola. We actually have a web call with them next Wednesday where they're going to kind of go over the system, and we really don't have a firm pricing quote. So we're working on kind of 2 years ago, they gave us a quote for $556,000. Earlier this year, when we began having problems with our system, we asked them to update that quote. They said it had gone up by about 10%, so now we're at about $600,000. But we still don't have a firm quote for them to move forward with. So this is a project that we're planning for FY24. We're trying to firm up those numbers.
Okay, perfect.
And then just for the record on that one too, we've talked to 911, and this has never been part of the 911 system that we've purchased and that we've paid for.
I understand that, but this is a component of the system that if it didn't exist, there would be no way to alert an ambulance that there's even an emergency. We feel like, in the statute, ambulance districts are authorized to pay for this type of infrastructure. I believe that the reason that it was never covered under the 911 system is because our equipment actually predates 911. It's quite antiquated and old. It's definitely due for an update, and so we're asking for a cost share between the city and the county.
And I understand that. I'm just saying what we've talked about some of this before as we talk about it, so it's on the record for it.
Yeah, it's we believe it's a vital component to the EMS system. So, just like a PSAP and an ambulance, we can't serve the public if we can't alert our people to the nature and location of an incident. So. We did forecast out into the future and look at some of these cardiac monitor replacements. We did a large purchase a few years ago, and I'd like to come back before you at a work session in the future and just kind of go over a future capital plan. We have some options. There are, we can either continue to purchase capital as we have in the past, seeing kind of some spikes in the system and then a few years without, or we just learned about some new options that all of our vendors offer that is kind of a level pay, if you will, to where you really lease to own the equipment and you pay the same rate every year. And so I don't know whether the commission would rather see some sort of leasing option with capital there, or whether you'd like to continue doing capital as we have always done for planning purposes.
If we were to purchase, say, one a year, would that be kind of the equivalent of
Yeah,
a lease?
well.
But then you wouldn't have all of them due up at the same time?
Exactly. One of the nice things, and I just learned about these programs in the last few weeks. One of the nice things is that they include the maintenance agreements, and also they include technology upgrades, and you're replenishing your entire fleet at one time. And so you don't have maybe 3 or 4 of your monitors are going out, no longer supported, and 6 or 7 are brand new. They're
Or different technology?
Different technologies. They're kind of all same user interface, same models, be
That makes
refreshed
sense.
at the same rate. So
Makes sense.
it sounds pretty intriguing to us.
I hate leases, just so you know, but we have to
Understood.
roll with them. It's just extra work.
Understood, yeah.
But for that, it makes sense. And you've prioritized the equipment, 1 through 4, so you've got the ranking right there if we can't fund everything through the capital.
Yeah, other than, on the capital, I don't know whether the ambulance or the command vehicle would take precedence. The grant, we hope to find out soon, but it probably would stay in that ranking.
Okay. And we can get with you.
And obviously on the grant, this is something that if we don't get the grant, then we're not going to execute that money.
Okay. Well, and as we start looking at what we have for reserves through the clerk's recommendation, we can talk and just reconfirm priorities
Sounds good.
so that we know we have what you need.
Okay.
And you've always, so back to the contract amount, you've always budgeted for retirements, correct?
Yes.
So that's nothing new, even though it's noted on the side.
Yeah,
Okay. I just want to put that
that was just kind of a
clarification out there.
catch-all of everything. Planned retirement is something that's always been funded through the contract. That's not new this year. We were just trying to call out everything that was contained in that number.
Just wanted to point out the things that were different versus what weren't.
Okay. Understood.
Do you have any other questions? Anyone else?
No.
Any other questions on that one? Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you very much.